All right. Hello and welcome to the Furality Community Leader Q&A panel. We are all free Vrchat community leaders inside of this game here. We will be discussing some stuff. Whatever you guys want to bring up, ask a question. The link should be on the Twitch. Should be at the bottom of the screen on the Twitch. That will show you where you can answer or ask questions, and I will get them, read them out, and all of us will try and answer them to the best of our ability. So, Hawaiian, if you could start us off with kind of introduce yourself and who you are, and then we'll go down the list of all of our panelists here. Also, if you would like to possibly be on this panel next year, for some other community, if you lead a community in this game, make sure to message me. You can contact me through the Best Boy Discord, which is down there in front of us. All of our Discord and all of our links are down there. If you ever want interested in joining or getting into any of our communities, just join through those links. The links will also be posted in the Twitch chat at the end of the event. So, yeah, off to Hawaiian.
Okay, hello. I am Whitman, or Hawaiian Hyena, and I am an admin and community manager for the Hyena Day Emporium, or Land of Cackles.
Hello, I am Rusty Dusty Fox, project head for the Best Boy Project and the Best Boy Modeling Team. The Best Boy Project is kind of a group that specializes in creating free community models based around available models that will be delivered free of charge to everyone. And they're highly customizable, and that kind of thing is our goal, to make those kind of models. So, sure.
Hello, my name is Shellfoot, and I represent the Shiba Squad. I am currently an acting moderator and community manager for the Shibas as a whole. This community was created by Pika PD, in which our social media is on here in case you are interested at any point during the panel. And yes.
Okay. I'm Dashi. I am the owner of the Avali Army. We mostly go around with doing space meetups and general games, mostly around model making of the Avalis.
And hello, I'm Hayu. I'm a 3D modeler and community leader for the Long Boys, which are these weasel, pine marten kind of species of avatar. And it's a general mustelid, weaselly kind of community for VR players.
Sadly, it does. Oh, actually, Spaghetti just got here in time. Spaghetti, would you like to introduce yourself?
Dave, hello.
Whoa!
He's striking a pose for us. It's okay.
Do a little spin.
Hi, I'm Spaghetti. I made the Kangas. I make other avatars. I manage a little community of people in VRChat.
DearAvatar.com?
Yeah.
Sure.
Glad to have you.
Would you like to go ahead and we could start off with our questionnaires?
Well, it seems like the link isn't on the Twitch quite yet. I think they're still trying to pull up the link to go send the questions. I'm not sure why it's not there yet, but
perhaps
I guess we could start by taking some questions from the audience.
Oh, yes, that could work too.
Yeah, we could start by going off with some questions from the audience. If anyone has a question, please raise your hand or do something to get yourself noticed in the crowd if you do not are VR. That way we can see you. And if you may have a question, now is time. So.
Shia Priya,
yes, what is your question?
What are some of the biggest hurdles that you have to go over or do in in hosting and having a large community of people, especially with one of yours, Rusty, that has to distribute a model and help people with textures and all the coordination that kind of comes into play with being able to help so many people and talk to them and manage them all at the same time?
I guess we could start with Hawaii and then go down the list for everyone.
Okay. So the review of the question is how do we manage with the way the models are distributed, or the ways the models, or do we have support for if people want help with textures and things? Okay, so kind
of some of the challenges associated with all that.
Okay, so some of the challenges that you'll encounter is when you're starting out, or even when you're still going, is you try to have someone who's done Discord servers before help you lay out your server so it's not too clunky. Unfortunately, the Highness server is a bit too old at this point, and it has a bit too many channels, but we've put them into subsections So in one specific section is about the free avatars and models and model help. So in model help, you can go and ask your questions, and we have various people that are not any of our moderators, but are different people that have done customs and have encountered problems. And if I can answer some of the questions, I will. And if other people do, we kind of chip in. We use different people in the community. It's like an open forum. So if people have any questions, or if they get snagged on something, they can send in pictures on there. Through the way models are distributed, in some cases they'll be off of websites. So like a slightly better run places have actual websites. We still only go through our Discord, and it can either be through Google Drives or through our group uses Mega, which is a cloud service in New Zealand. So, and then we also try to list, because this is for continuity, is with each section we'll have to say what SDK that they'll work with, because it'll conflict if you use the wrong SDK. I'm not really sure if I have very much more input. We can see farther down the line.
All right. I guess I could go. And if whoever's running the stream, could you please move the link to the Twitch to the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, or somewhere else that's more visible? Because right now it looks to be a bit cut off, where you can send the link. Maybe move it like above everyone, above all the pictures. That would be a better place to put it. But I guess to answer your question, for when it comes to running that kind of event, there's a lot of different factors that come into it, especially for me, who kind of has like the public models and all, has to help a lot of people with their coming in, because for what I noticed with me especially, is that you get a lot of new people coming in who've never done anything with modeling before, and they're just like, hey, what do I do? What do I have to download? And what I found to be useful is just like have a community of people who know how to do it. Like find people who already know how to kind of have that skill. Like community can teach itself, kind of. But if you ever need, like, if you're the one who creates the stuff, you can basically go in there and say, okay, this is what you got to do, and kind of help people out. Because really, setting up a model isn't really that hard. If you have your package is set up correctly, all you got to do is tell them what to download, have them click on a Unity scene, and boom, the model's right there. And it really depends on like what kind of skill you're going for, I guess. Shiel?
Yeah, so this may seem pretty obvious initially, but what you should consider is obviously a community that you would like to promote proactivity in the creation, editing, modification of these already distributed assets per the community. You should always have a channel or designated category where people of like-mindedness and creativity can congregate together, and they have an easy direction to go in, because it's easy to put yourself out there in the public channels of a Discord community and say, hey, I need help, and can someone DM me? Or you might overhear that one particular individual might be able to help you. But the more the merrier, and the more centralized the better. So having those resources available for people to come together, find out who, where, when they can get help is the best feasible option that I can personally see. Do you have any input, Dashi?
I'd say ours is pretty much the same. We have a section on our channel for anyone who's helped with sorting out the SDK, from retexturing if it's on a free-to-use paint software, or so like even a paid one. We teach them how to like texture it properly. We teach them how to do animations, to do all of the pretty much fixes and corrections of their models, so they can get it uploaded with mostly ease. So pretty much our whole community helps each other.
It's the same in the longboard community. Although, so one thing I want to answer is how you get that started, and how do you reduce the workload on your community for answering all these questions as well. So what the Longboy does is it comes with a PDF, and there's also a Google Doc version online that we spread, which actually has essentially all of the information that answers all the most asked questions. It's pretty much like a massive tutorial document, and it has all the information you need, and even little tutorials for the sort of the most common use cases. And for stuff like uploading, even though it makes the file size a bit bigger, the download comes with, if you package your avatar with the actual Unity project, like the folder inside of the zip, then they don't have to add the SDK and add the model. They can just open up that project, the first Longboy was actually uploaded to Vrchat within 5 minutes of the person downloading it. Actually, I think that was you. So, that really helps as well, having a user manual or tutorial of some kind you include.
Yeah, it's something I'm planning to do with my avatars at some point in the future.
Do you have anything you'd like to add on to that, Spaghetti?
Yeah. So for us, with on the technical issue side of uploading Avatar, I think the single most frequent issue is people not knowing they have to include dynamic bones. You know, because legally we cannot distribute dynamic bones with an avatar because it's a paid asset, but it's a required thing to upload an avatar. So I really hope that the VRChat developers in the future will either acquire the rights to dynamic bones or have an equivalent of it included, so that we can make these all-in-one packages that people can just upload as is without having to go fetch some other assets for it to work.
And for those who don't know, dynamic bones is like the floppy ears that you have. When you move your head, the ears flop around instead of just being like, you know, permanently stuck out like they're made of wood.
Yeah.
Do we have
Thanks for
any
the
other
question.
questions? Yeah.
Yes, so we do. We have a lot of questions we are getting.
Ooh.
Let's see. What is the hardest part of what is it? What is the hardest part of managing a community of a decent size?
Is that directed towards any panelist in
I
particular,
think
or
it's
should we
just for
continue to
everyone, so I
answer
guess we
down
could
the
run down the line
line?
again. Yeah, I think down the line,
Alrighty.
unless it's a
Okay,
specific,
we'll go consecutive.
a
That's
specific
all right.
one.
Okay,
Yeah.
so my input on when your community gets to larger size is it's inevitable. Like depending on what you're hosting or what you're running, more people are going to get on board, and you'll already have, depending on how you lay out your server, or if you have a map that's themed, your map will usually have the Discord link. So you're going to get people coming in, and then you usually will set your lower moderation or admins to be accepting people, or you'll have a bot that accepts them. Otherwise, if you're like my group, which is a bit too old, we still have to manually give out the Discord link, and the same link that's posted in front of me is from September 2017 or so. So it's really old, but it's still usable. When you get your community larger, with most of the way that it's happened with my group is we'll have people that are invested in the community and who do have the time and within different time zones because it's international. And they're up to putting in time to be moderation. They don't fill out. We don't have as well organized setup as applications like other groups. So most of the time, it's just kind of we talk to people in the community, and sometimes we'll approach them, or sometimes they'll approach us. And with a group, I don't know the full numbers, but when it's getting larger, then you do want more, at least moderators to cover almost all the time slots of the world. So you have like different people in Europe and Asia and North America. So in short, what I'd say our group did was we usually will have more team members of the management, but also it allows you to expand a little more and invest, keep people's interest with events. So I haven't really been a host of events, but it is a good idea, and we have had several in the past, and I'm very grateful for Shale for hosting several of them. And so that's another good way when you have a larger group. You won't always have a lot of them all in one map either. Your maps are limited. So overall, sometimes if you can coordinate it, you can get a big get together and have them pile in a map. But you can't really have or visually see all your membership. So that's my input on larger groups.
Yeah, going off a little bit what Whitman said, I totally agree with you. Like, well, what's the Best Boy community? We do meetups like once every 2-ish weeks. We'll have like a meetup where a group or the most like active group will come into a world and have a good time together. And then once a month we'll do meetings where I'll come up on stage for like 10-ish minutes and talk about the community and that kind of thing. But going back to the original question, I guess, when it comes to like managing a community and like getting your community to that size, you ever heard like a goldfish will never grow bigger than the fish tank it's in? I kind of look at it that way. Build your server as if it was going to be this massive server. Like, I don't mean to go into that with that expectation of becoming a big server, because realistically it's very hard to get to that point. But have the infrastructure ready, so you don't need to go back and change things and go through everything again, because it's hard to do once you've already started to grow. So like, build yourself with the framework you need to build your community up, and go from there, basically. And for me personally, the hardest part when it comes to like managing a community of that size is just like dealing with the sheer membership size of it. There's a lot of back things that people really don't see when you're in the front. Like, there's a lot of pressure because you're the one who's trying to deliver this content to all these people, and that can be a really, really difficult thing for a lot of people to kind of think about, because if you mess up, a lot of people are going to see that mistake, and that can be a very stressful thing. Michelle?
I agree a lot with what Whitman and Rusty have said, that infrastructure is really important in the growth of a community. Inevitably, you'll want to implore and give incentive for fellow community members to aid each other. It's always good to have a moderation team handy to manage these big, continually growing communities, but a key factor are the people, those within it. Another thing along with growing a big community is to consider the possibility that one day it will come to an end. It's something that I know a lot of people won't consider and kind of is deviating from this topic, but it is something that I do think is important to cover, because just as quickly as a community can grow, it can also plateau and come to a conclusion. So, mentally preparing yourself for those circumstances and also providing future alternatives, projects, and other things you'd like to continue with and improve upon with what knowledge you've learned when creating and moderating, managing a community, I think is a very important aspect when you are beginning to get up into those higher numbers, especially if you aren't too active yourself in the community. The community members among you will take notice of that, and everybody needs to participate in some form, even if it's just a little word a day or them joining in, if only to leave. That participation will always play a crucial part, no matter how big or small. Do you have something to say, Dashi?
Well, I'd say mine's pretty similar. With my community team and all that, we rely on good communication between us all. Along with, we're all in different time zones, so we can uncover pretty much day and night of every day. And most of them, they arrange all of our meetups and such, so I try to attend them as much as I can when I'm free, but I rely on them as much as everyone on the server. They rely on me.
Yeah, and the question was specifically about community size, and there's a few different aspects, I think, to community size, because it's not really about member count. It's more about how much stuff is happening, how busy is it, and also how quickly did that develop. There are communities, especially run by YouTubers, where they'll put out their Discord link and suddenly they'll have several thousand people in this community, but those people all just joined immediately, and so there was no natural build-up, and it's kind of chaos. There's, whenever people join a community, and you've probably experienced this yourself joining a community, there's a case of a period of time where you're kind of, not really active that much. You're just kind of watching everyone else and figuring out, how does this community work? How do people speak? And what kind of stuff do we talk about? And you kind of pick up on that ethos of the community and apply that to how you engage. And so you want to really take advantage of when new users join, you want them to have that good experience. You want them to see that your community is a certain way so that they know to reciprocate that. And so if you have a natural growth to your community, you're able to really maintain the ethos you want in that community without things kind of running away without you. Yeah, I mean, in my experience, the communities that I run are quite chill. There's not an awful lot going on. Meetups aren't as regular as I would like quite yet. But as far as the natural sort of development goes and controlling how it grows, so that you don't want to use cheap tactics to grow your community, because those just end up with cheap community members, and it'll turn into a kind of a cheap community. So yeah, it's a case of being careful and really kind of getting into the mind of what does a person see when they join, and what do they decide? How do they decide to reciprocate?
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
Kanga community is small enough to manage easily, so I don't really have anything to add to that.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I guess we can take one from the crowd now. But Flamey, if someone else maybe could put the link to the question answering in the Twitch chat itself, because I see some people are having trouble with the link in there. I think that would be a good thing to do for that. If we could take another question from the audience real quick, if anyone has another question, if they could raise their hand or come on, show up and like jump around. Kenzie.
Hi. So my question is a little complex. Might be hard to answer for some, and you're free to skip over it. But one thing that a lot of communities tend to struggle with is keeping out problematic people and dealing with people who are either genuinely abusive or just toxic to a community. What steps do you guys generally take to ensure that you have minimized problematic members of the community as much as you have possible? And what would you recommend for people that are also running communities to do to minimize this kind of mentality and these kind of people within a community?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. Hawaiian, if you could get started with that.
Okay,
And
I
move
will
down the line
start.
again.
Our community is somewhat one of the starter groups, so it was very experimental per se. We originally would accept everyone that would get the link and would request to join. We already had in the server a set aside area where you had to first be confirmed and ranked before you could even really interact with the rest of the server. So at times we would already hear in passing, or the name was familiar, and we would do background research on people. And specific people that would possibly be troubles, then we would not accept. So we would in some cases I would message them like directly and explain it. It's like I have to explain. And other cases people just are accepted, and people legitimately got kind of bored. They were like, well, I'm bored and I just want to kind of cause chaos. So those people became problematic later. So we have had to kick people, but it's individual and case by case. And even with our numbers the way they are and numbers the way they were, we really haven't had to kick that many people because we already had the initial entry gate per se, where people kind of congregate. We had to go accept them. So that's, I don't really have much, if I have much more information on my advice for how to keep people out besides just kind of talk to already existing communities and figure out who exactly maybe it would be problematic that might apply for your new community that's coming up, because it's a continuous thing. I've had to deal with the same people, and I have to go talk to other groups and other communities and say, this person is this individual, and this is possibly what they do if they want to join your community, or this is what they could do to go and hurt other people. So it's up to you to decide, but this is the person's name and this is their Discord, and hopefully they don't use an alt, because people probably can use alts, but that's all the information that I have.
For me, I guess the best thing is I could say stay vigilant. Always be on the lookout. Look, you have to be, as a community leader, you should be active in your community. You should be always like going through, seeing who's joining, being like a part of it. Because once you become detached from the community starts to become a different thing. And when that happens without that kind of person, without you being there, it could be in a negative direction. Like, as a leader, you kind of have to, you should be steering the community in a good direction. Like, as a leader of the Best Blood community, we have had unfortunate individuals who have regrettably gained positions of power in our community, which leads to a lot of negativity. So we must always be vigilant and when rooting out those individuals. So like if you get a report, so as a community leader, let's say I get a report from someone, first thing you gotta do is investigate it. And first thing, remove the person from their position temporarily and investigate. Then you can decide like, is this a real thing or is this not a real thing? And when Israel, you must act, because if you let those kind of people who are toxic, who are abusing people in the community, become figureheads in the community, that can be extremely damaging to not only your image, but the community's image. Like, you personally could get blamed for someone else's actions as a community leader. If there's someone in your community starts doing negative things, like model crashers or like abusive people and that kind of thing, you must always be on the lookout for them. And community leaders talk. I mean, we talk to each other. Community leaders talk to each other. So problematic individuals will be. If someone's a problematic individual, we will like kind of go out and kind of tell each other. Like Orion was talking about a bit. Like if there's someone who's actively known for causing issues, word of mouth and like even directly telling other people, we'll get around that those kind of things are happening. And that's kind of all I could say on the issue. But just like as well, like one more thing though, about kind of what Hawaiian said about like having a gate to get people in. On the best way Discord, you have to read the rules, which we have a decent set of rules. I think that like just kind of puts up the framework of what is like acceptable, what isn't acceptable, and that kind of thing. And in that rules, you'll find the password, and you have to message that to one of our staff members to get access to the rest of the server. This is such a big thing. I think a lot of more servers, community servers, should do, because it keeps out a lot of the raiders and the spammers and the people who just won't communicate with the server. It's like a good filter for that kind of thing. And I guess that's kind of all I could say about that for now.
One of the things I like to implore to everyone, and something I hold true, is never be negligent with what is brought to your attention. There might be some individuals that you already feel will be troublesome, but they themselves might actually have proper inclination to report a different troublemaker in your community. No matter who brings this information to you, whether it's a credible source or not, you should still try to investigate it and consult your fellow community leaders to see if there's any validity to these claims. Another thing that was mentioned is, since these are online communities, anonymity is a big part of being in these communities. Two types of troublemakers could be one who is putting on a facade and attempting to come under a different alias, but someone else might be inadvertently being too exuding a lack of anonymity and sharing too much information about oneself. So those are some individuals you have to keep in mind about when you're here in an online community. And just as Whitman and Rusty have mentioned, having a gateway and having proper permission sets, whatever platform you may be on, if feasible, is a great way to deter those first wave or initial troublemakers that might arrive to the community. I personally have to say that I do at times find that I have trouble speaking to troublemakers in the community, people who might be abusive and confrontational, because I myself am a human. We are all human and exude empathy in one way or another. I can definitely understand people's apprehension to approaching these individuals, but as a community leader, regardless of what you might be feeling personally, you need to take the words of others and try to do what you can to help everyone in the situation as best as possible, while also making sure that everyone is safe in the process. Do you have something you'd like to say?
Not really. Our one's mostly down to just a two-step warning. And well, if they continue after the 2 steps, we normally discuss what do we do with them. Do we give them a third chance, or do we get rid of them? But that's maybe us. Ours is pretty short.
Now I want to talk about what it's like to make the decision to ban someone. There are a lot of definitely cases where banning people can be quite difficult. You're essentially silencing a person from your community. However, there is a case where silencing a person is entirely justified, I feel, and where the decision is made very easy to you. And that is when they are trying to silence others, or they support groups who are trying to silence others. The paradox of tolerance is that in order to get along, we must really, really work to not tolerate the people whose message is that we shouldn't get along. The people who are intolerant of others for no good reason whatsoever, we cannot be tolerant of them whatsoever. And that is how we can achieve maximum average tolerance and have a good time. I also want to talk about a weird edge case. There's a very difficult situation, especially when it comes to voice chats, where those of us who are much less lucky when it comes to our social skills, especially early in life, I used to be one of those too, can not understand, like they don't have this same period where they join the server and they see how things are going and they kind of get the feel for it. They might not actually do that the way other people do. And they might really often interrupt people or not get things, or without knowing it and without intending to be, they can be really drag down the mood or the tone, or make chatting with others difficult because you kind of feel like they're in the way. And there's an edge case where this can be so bad for an individual that it's not breaking any rules, it's not being toxic, and they're not wanting to do any harm. But it can just be really, really difficult for everyone. And so something that I withhold is that, we at least require people to try their best not to degrade the quality of communication. And we will do things like, if you're constantly interrupting people in voice chat, if you just don't get it, then you can't voice chat. We'll take that away from you, because the server needs to keep going, and if it's being pulled back, we have to make that decision. But it can be hard to make that decision because it's not like they're trying anything. It's not like they're deliberately doing anything wrong. But yeah, that's like a kind of a last resort kind of difficult thing to do.
Very well said, Hayu.
Yeah, good job.
For me, the only ban that occurred in the Kanga server was someone that was absolutely legendary for getting banned out of multiple communities for very sus behavior and just generally being a dick. So that was a pretty clear-cut case. And yeah, sometimes you just gotta rule with an iron fist, where even if a person hasn't yet caused much issue in your community, if they're known for repeatedly just being an awful person in multiple other communities and getting banned everywhere over and over, then you might want to just keep them out as soon as you notice they arrive.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Yeah, people have reputations. We talk.
I guess going off the whole community leaders talk to each other, I have a question saying, do your communities work together in any capacity, and do you have any joint plans moving forward?
Ooh,
Well, I guess
like
I can kind of
that.
talk about that. I think me and Hawaiian were talking about maybe doing some kind of joint Yi and Best Boy event. But I think maybe we could do after the panel. Maybe we could talk about maybe doing some big community event with all of our communities coming together. I guess that's what we use that group chat for that afterwards. That would be interesting.
There's no math.
That is true. That is true.
Good question.
Yes, very good question.
For me personally, I've thought about doing joint community events, but haven't pursued too heavily on any of them yet. But this is definitely a great question. I'm glad this was brought up because I think it's time.
Yes, indeed. Indeed. Let's see here. Alright, for those, this is more a question towards Shellfoot and Spaghetti, I suppose, but for those who run Discord for paid models, how do you address handling expectations from users who think that being part of a Discord entitles them to be able to have access to the model?
This one I might have to think about.
I guess that's Spaghetti wants to do.
I haven't had that issue at all.
Can you repeat the question, sorry?
Yeah, one last time, if you don't mind.
Yes, Hayu too. I forgot that you have the Long Boys paid. It's for those who run Discords for paid models, how do you address handling expectations from users who think being a part of a Discord entitles them to be able to have access to the model?
Shellfoot.
Yes.
Wait.
I suppose I can go ahead and answer now. So with regards to people coming and joining the Discord community or wherever your assets may be offered to other individuals, if they're paying for the assets, I do feel that we are obligated to distribute those assets because it is a paid product. If we do find that somebody is really being detrimental in terms of use of the avatar, it's breaking TOS, we can't exactly take away those assets. It now belongs to them to some degree, but we can ask them to prohibit such use of those assets, as well as let them know that, we can't have them in the community if they're going to, abuse that. But yes, typically with regards to paid assets, you're paying for a product and you should get what you paid for. If it does come to a point where they are able to provide proof or some kind of validation that they are relinquishing ownership of such assets, perhaps refunds can be in order. But I haven't found a particular circumstance like that myself. So that is something really good to consider and do some more
Yeah.
thinking on, some further insight. Do you have something to say, Hayu?
Regarding people coming to the Discord and expecting being in the Discord entitles them to the assets. I've never actually had that issue crop up. I've actually had the opposite happen where people think that people very new to VRchat and they think that you need to buy the assets just to wear an avatar in VRchat, and I had that recently. Coming from Second Life, so it's generally, in our announcements channel, the first thing, it's a big pinned thing, is basically like, it's here, it's for sale. And I think when people come in, our community isn't really centered around the asset. It's more centered around weasels and VR in general. There are several different weasel avatar makers who talk about their work in there. So it's never been an issue for us, really.
Yeah. I guess I've never had that issue since the best boys are free models, but that's really interesting to hear from that side of things. Does anyone have another audience? I guess we can take another question from the audience if anyone has anything they want to ask. Is that Zetharias with their hand up? Or are they just moving around? I can't really tell. I think they just
moving.
Just moving around. All right.
Okay.
All right, then I guess we
We
might
could
take
take
another
another
one
question
from
online.
yeah, I guess we could take another one. Let's see here.
And
What are
also,
the
thank
best
you to
practices?
everyone who has been putting in questions so far.
Yeah, thank you. Continue sending them in. We got about 2 hours. So if any random thought that would enter your head, pop it towards us, and we'll see if we can get to it. So I guess this is a good question to go to. How do you manage your time considering work, friends, and the content you guys put out? I think that's a good question. So Hawaiian, I guess you could start us off.
Okay, so even if I am the community manager, I still have the layer of moderators. And most of the time I'll have to rely on them and the other. I'm the co-founder of the group, so we also have the founder will get involved otherwise. But me being in Hawaii, which is one of the last time zones, I am going to be, in this case, 2 hours to West Coast. Not sure hours to other areas. But then East Coast is, I think, 5-hour difference. And then Europe is a mirror time zone. So I have to balance during the weekdays when I'm usually employed with, I can only really interact with the community in my afternoons. So I don't really remember what my hours were, but I've been in quarantine a while, so it hurts my memory. But with the balance is, I will usually have my Discord open, and I have several different Discords that I assist with. I'm only the manager for one. But I keep tabs on them. Once in a while I'll check around. I'll check in like the general chat and see if anyone has anything that pops up, or I'll check the welcoming area and see if I can accept anyone. I'll review them. It's just kind of a balance of, usually when I was done with work, I would immediately get home and check the Discord and see if anything needed to be talked about, anything needed to be handled, any questions, or any direct messages I would get. Otherwise, at a certain point, I'm not sure how many hours I would spend, in quotes, working, and then the rest of the time I would actually be in game and playing with different groups. So in most of the case, my group's kind of not as active, and it's a point to make it more, or to be a little more involved. But it is kind of a balance. So I am involved with the community for a part of my day, but most of the day I'm not.
Yeah. For me, I'm a bit on the younger side. I'm 17. I'm still in high school, so most of the week I'm juggling that alongside taking like 1 or 2 hours a day to work on commissions for custom best boys. Another 2 hours to like work on the world. And then the night I hang out with my friends because I feel when you're juggling those kind of things, it can get very stressful. So you do need that time off sometimes when you're just chilling out with people, with your friends, because like if you're just crunching, working all the time, juggling work, school, modeling, creating things, the community, it just gets a lot of weight on your shoulders. So another thing is delegate your duties that you don't. You're absolutely you're absolutely sure that someone else can take care of. Like, let's say you're making the model. Good, make your model. Have someone else do the moderation. Have someone else handle bringing new people into the server. Have someone else like delegate duties out to other people, because if you just try and juggle all of the stuff by yourself, you will get overwhelmed and get burnt out and curl up in a corner and cry, which has happened. But but like always delegate your duties out to other people in your server who you trust. Make sure that don't say that, oh, you're my friend, you're now staff. Find people who say, hey, this person's helping out people in the server when they join in, or hey, this person's making sure people follow the rules. Find those people. Don't just make someone a moderator because, like, oh, you're my friend. Bring people onto the staff because they are capable people who are involved with the community. Because the last thing you want is staff members who just, sit back, don't do anything. You should always want to have a staff that is active in your community. Because the staff should be an extension of the community, not something a part of the community.
So, I suppose for myself, I actually have a little bit of a hectic way of going about this, so I would not recommend taking all my advice with regards to this. But definitely fixate everything around your general sleep schedule. Typically, you'll want to have some times that you can pinpoint and build off of. So make sure you have a very set, cohesive, continual time of which you'll wake up and go to sleep. That way, you have the proper rest you'll need in order to start the day. I usually delegate 6 hours to working on moderation for various tasks involving the community a day. But that's because I have less responsibilities during the day. It obviously will vary from person to person. So I highly suggest just trying to find a peaceful medium in which you have proper time to delegate to yourself, to the community, to your work, and what have you. But never, ever, ever, and this is something I will always implore, do not cast aside your hobbies, passions, or interests just for a community. As much as you, as a manager, must love and be a part of that community and help to moderate if that is your responsibilities, you have to think about yourself first and foremost. Your health and everything that you do for yourself will impact the community and how you interact with them. So it's always important to take care of yourself first.
Yeah, you can't create for a community if you're just dead all the time, tired, unable to like function. Self-care is really important.
I manage fine doing that.
Oh.
Very nice.
Since my work is only the short hours of the mornings before lockdown, and now I'm not at work, I pretty much have my admins covering the mornings, whoever is in the EU sort of time zone. So by the time I literally I finish work, it's the afternoon, so US is starting to wake up, so I pretty much have the whole afternoon and often night. If it gets to the weekends, I can spend time with them then. But I don't. If I can't make it and want to have my own time, I have my own time.
Yeah, as Rusty mentioned, what's a really good idea is to find the people in your community who are already essentially being the role of moderators without having any kind of moderator role, assigned to them. And I talk to them and say, hey, would you like to be a moderator? Because you seem to already be doing a good job of that kind of work. These are the people who are already interested in cultivating your community for you. So, when it comes to sort of the everyday stuff, generally it's not up to you to be dealing with that. It's up to your moderators. It's sort of the larger plan kind of things and sort of, more scheduling kind of things that are up to you as the community leader. And For me, I've been through a few different work situations this year, but generally, my communities, they're not particularly fast moving. So I've been focusing on quality over quantity. I've been trying to, whenever I'm looking at Twitter, just on the off chance during the day, I'm not just reading Twitter, I'm also studying how are people reacting to things. What are people saying are, competing different sort of moral systems? What kind of things help people get along? What kind of things hurt people? And the more I learn from that, it's like the more data I have to learn about this whole field of human society, which is this sociology essentially. And that can really sort of help. It can inform decisions that you make early in your community that make work way easier later on. If your community is, itself focused on going in a good direction, you don't have to constantly be pulling the steering wheel. What was the other thing I wanted to mention? I'll probably get back to it. But yeah, that's I think is a good thing to think about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah, for me, this is my work. So I'll work on modeling and texturing and whatnot during the day, and I don't have perfectly defined hours. I'll just kind of do it until I get, tired of it at around 5 or 6 p.m. or whenever. Then I'll have some amount of time just hanging out in Discord playing games, and then I'll come here in Vrchat and socialize. And if I'm short on time in a day, and some things have to fall away, can only do a subset of things, then hanging out here in Vrchat is a priority for me. When the days when I skip socializing in here, I do much worse the next day. It is an absolute priority because humans are very social creatures. If you don't socialize, then you just feel terrible. So very important for me, in this pandemic, Vrchat is the primary form of socialization I get. So I always make sure I get enough of it.
Down to being
And then
self-isolated.
yeah,
these days.
as for what Shell said, having a nice sleep schedule, that's ideal. I sleep enough, not at the right time. I should be better at that. I think a lot of people struggle with the proper sleep schedule.
Oh yeah, me too. Yeah, sometimes you'll have community members reach out to you who are experiencing personal issues with other community members, and it turns into like a whole complicated thing. But it's in these cases, it's no bigger than these two people, and it's nothing to do with your server really. And it doesn't seem to pose any issue for the server. And they're your friends, they're people you can help them out, but know that the time that you should stop helping someone is the time when it becomes so much work for you that you require help yourself. At that point, you are actually doing damage to yourself, and you need to look out for yourself first. There's only so much help you can give before you need help, and don't feel like you have to keep pushing to be everyone's therapist past the point where it's starting to hurt you too.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Again, it's a good jumping off point to another really good question I got. 1 second.
Is that Navali here? Hold on.
Uh-oh.
That's
Dashi's still here?
concerning.
Dashi's
I don't see
here.
Dashi.
I see him next to Shale.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
see
He's
Dashi.
invisible to me.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
hide
he's
and
invisible to me too.
unhide the avatar. That's a little funny VR check glitch that'll happen sometimes.
Yes.
Thank you,
woo.
Vrchat. Very cool.
I've never seen that one
There
before.
you go.
No, it's all good.
I've seen it around before.
We're
It's
back.
relatively
They got
common.
smacked out the world.
Oh no.
Someone raised their hand.
Yeah, I guess going off what you said about like dealing with people who might have issues themselves. I think this question can go off from that. What about those who harm communities due to a feeling of loneliness or mental oh my god, I can't speak.
Mental.
How do you feel about those who harm communities due to a feeling of loneliness and mental illness? I guess if you would like to start us off, Hawaiian.
Loneliness
start off if you want.
and tight end mental. Yeah, sorry. You should.
Yeah,
Yeah.
don't worry about it.
Okay. Yeah, so, the mental The health issues are quite difficult. Personality disorders are especially difficult. Essentially, it's not something that the person is doing wrong. It's something that's wrong that is hurting them. And the way that these mental illnesses can work is that it doesn't just hurt them, it hurts people around them because it manifests as behaviors. I have a thing called complex PTSD, and for a while, my behaviors were freaking out other people, and they were things I couldn't control. Like, I'd make a mistake and I'd try to hurt myself by banging my head on a wall, and this would hurt the people around me because it would make them anxious, and that's something I had to get on top of. Mental illnesses don't just make you feel bad; they can also change your behavior, and you have to really just think of what's the overall good. You're trying to defend your community, and if someone's having a really tough time, it's hurting them too. So you have to make the call: is this hurting everyone? Is this trending good? Are they going to be able to pull through with this? And do they is this something that's going to get better, or is this something that's not going to get better? Is it going to get worse? And
Yeah.
it can be really, really hard. It doesn't need to involve any kind of kicking or banning. It may just have to involve talking to the person about, hey, this is a thing that's happening and it's not your fault, but we have to talk about where you speak and how you do it, and yeah, that is definitely one of the more difficult ones, and one that can require a lot of your own personal time, but it doesn't come up so often in my experience.
Yeah.
I mean, we
what was the
normally
other
take
part?
time out of we normally take time out of the day to speak to them one-on-one, or even
Yeah.
Exactly. So what was the first part of the question?
That was pretty much the question. Like that's a good answer to the question. It was how do you feel about what do you do about those who harm community due to feeling of loneliness and mental illness?
Loneliness, right? That was the other one I want to talk about. If you see, movements out there that are very intolerant, hateful movements, hateful communities, they prey on people's loneliness. If people are lonely, then they will seek acceptance from whoever offers it. They're desperate, and if you have a community that is entirely about hating on some group, then they will stick to whatever rules that you put out, and they will, essentially it is a recruitment into radicalization, because they're lonely. They'll play by your rules. And so, it's quite difficult when people are extremely lonely that they can start to get involved in radical groups like that. And so, you have to really reach out to them so that isn't a thing that happens to them. And yeah, in those cases, helping them out is quite important.
Yeah. In my experience, we've had quite a couple people on the Best Boy server who have had severe mental issues and loneliness. We have a vent channel on our server which kind of is meant to contain a lot of those negative thoughts and have a place for support. And what I found is that what I'm really proud of is with my community is that everyone is kind of more welcoming when they come in. People will help each other out, and I feel that's important for a community to have. Is that kind of like people will help each other. There have been cases where people whose tendencies have led to them needing to be removed from the community, but we've always tried to. First, we would talk with them one-on-one about it and see, hey, what can change here? And sometimes we react with anger and that kind of thing. It's a very tough situation when you deal with those kinds of people because it really isn't their fault in a lot of ways. But if it's harming more people than can be helped by helping that one person, then action does unfortunately need to be taken sometimes, in my experience.
Yeah.
When it comes to loneliness, when you're dealing with lonely people, like, your community should be built around people coming together. Like, when you have a community, like, people will come in there saying, hey, I want to be here. What can this place offer me? And if your community is growing and people will welcome each other into it, say, hey, welcome, let's be friends.